Okay, so the topic that I want to share with you is training a machine learning model to recognize Magic the Gathering cards. Now, two disclaimers before we start. I want to set expectations low because this sounds like a pretty big topic, and I think that the demo that I have at the end might be a little bit underwhelming depending on what you have in mind. But this is a prototype that I built without any prior knowledge of machine learning, and that it's actually working. And I'm very interested in sharing that. Now, the second disclaimer is that this is not intended to be a tutorial. You can think of this presentation more like a lightning talk from your local design meetup. So everything started with Lope. Lope is this app created by Microsoft. And this app allows you to create machine learning models and to train them. It's really easy to use. The interface is great. The experience is great. I really recommend you to try it. It's free. And I learned about this tool, but I was still trying to find like one scenario, like a reason to move me, like to drive me to try it, right? And then one day I remembered about a forgotten binder that I had with Magic the Gathering cards, and I thought about using them to create something with Lope. So the challenge that I set for myself was, can I train a machine learning model that correctly identifies Magic the Gathering cards? Now, you don't need to know about Magic the Gathering in order to follow what I'm going to be sharing today. Um, but just for context, I'm going to be focusing on this type of cards. Magic the Gathering has a type of cards called lands, and think of that as your resource to pay for other cards in the game. So there are different types of lands, and that's why I thought this was a really good candidate for image recognition. Let me walk you through that process. The first one was a data collection, which in this case, data, it's the cards, right? So I use this app called Office Lens, also created by Microsoft. This app is, you use it to scan documents, but I was using it to scan the cards. What you're gonna see here is that it's really easy to identify the card. Just with one tap, it's gonna trim the image and it's going to enhance it. So this made super easy for me to scan all of the cards and to bring them into the model. Now, labeling the data and training the model. This is when Lobe comes in. And again, Lobe was created by Microsoft and is an app that allows you to create and train a machine learning model. Again, it's super simple to use. I practically brought all of the images into the app, and from there, behind the scenes, it was always constantly training itself to correctly identify the data. Now, I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to do something else with what the model was giving me. And for that, I went into prototyping mode with Origami. Origami is an app created by Facebook. It's also a free app. And you use this one to design mobile experiences. So I decided also to use Origami because it's one of the tools that offers the easiest way to connect to the device camera. That's something that I needed to do. Uh, What I was doing here is that I had Origami and Lobe open at the same time. The Lobe was running the model, and with Origami, I could connect to it, make a request, and get a response from the model. And with that response, I could do something else and prototype a feature around it. And I'm going to show you that this is running in Origami. I'm showing that image, correctly identified as a mountain. This one, an Iceland. And then the last one, a swamp. It's working, right? Correctly identifying the images. Now, if you notice, there's a point in which there's no card in the camera and it's still trying to identify it as a card. So I have that image here in the middle. Um, and it was actually jumping in between forest or Iceland, right? But I think that what this made me realize, and again, all of this was a learning process for me, but it made me realize that the model doesn't say I don't know, right? It's always trying to identify it. Is this a forest? Is this an island? It doesn't say, I don't know. Now, this is not on the model. It might be more on the creator, in this case, me. But I think that it's eye-opening to see how these tools, like the machine learning model, you really need to get into providing as much data as possible, and then to training, to refine it. Because what you're getting here, it's a false positive, and the model is going to give you a result. And if you're not careful, you can take that result as the truth, right? Now, in this example, this is a really trivial example. It's just Magic the Gathering cards. But again, it was eye-opening. It's a realization to me because what we're seeing here is that just think about a scenario in which maybe you are checking for the tissue of a patient, the skin tissue of a patient, to identify whether or not the patient has cancer, right? Now the stakes are pretty high there. Consequences are much more bigger. So in this example, what I did is that I continued to gather more data. So I looked for images online and I brought it into my model. You can see that I ended up having around 123 images there, which is not a lot to have a model working, right? You should have thousands of images. But for now, it was much better than what I had before. And I also included a new category, human creature. For that category, what I'm doing is adding also photos of me so that when there are no cards, it can identify me as a human. So with that, let's see the latest iteration that I have. So you launch the feature, human creature, and then there's a card, forest, correct? Human creature again, and then swamp and human, and it goes like that. I'm gonna stop it there, but it identified correctly all of the cards, and it didn't have any mistakes in jumping between cards and detecting me too. So as a recap, I'll say that for what I put together, my data was Magic the Gathering cards, and I used Office Lens to capture those cards. For training the machine learning model into labeling the data, I used Lope. And then for prototyping and to actually build a scenario around the response from the model, I use Origami. Now, all of these apps are free. I think that the most expensive thing here, the only one that had a cost, was the Magic cards. But I wanted to point this out because uh, both Origami and Lope are from the no code movement. I think it's really, really amazing what you can do with these types of tools these days. This proof of concept demonstrates that you can have a machine learning model running in Lope, and then you can use a tool like Origami or a different one to get the response from it and do something with it, test on a scenario. I think it's really important to think on what you can do with these tools and how they enable non-technical people to explore also their ideas and their scenarios, which is I think it's great and it's a benefit for everyone. So that's what I wanted to share for today. So with that, thanks.